Hey everyone, good afternoon. We're going to be going live to share a birth story with one of my followers and friends. So let's just give me a minute to invite Tzivia on here. There we go. Okay. Couldn't find where to do it. Invite. Let's wait for her to come on.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good to see your face.
Just yeah, I know. It's I know it's like only 1 o'clock for you, but I'm like wrapping up my night now.
Deep breath.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the calmest time of the day because the little people are asleep, the house is clean.
I know. It's true. It's the best. To ever stay up way too late because it's quiet and you're just
Oh, absolutely. Every single night. It's like I still have a baby that's up at night and I'm like, why am I not going to bed at 9 o'clock?
I
But
know,
I just can't. I need that alone time to like process the day.
100%. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm so happy that we're doing this.
Yeah,
Number
me too.
number one, because when I pulled people on this page before and asked do you like birth stories, it's overwhelmingly yes, we love hearing birth stories. Okay, so that's obviously number one, but also number two is selfishly I get to hear your birth stories now.
Yeah.
So it's also partially self-motivated and I get to see your face. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, your kids' ages,
Yeah,
things like
sure.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, so thank God my husband and I have been married almost 7 years now. It's hard to believe. We started off our marriage in Israel, and I became pregnant with my first child just around the time that we were getting ready to leave. So I didn't really experience the system here at all.
Right.
And then we returned to America. We were there for 4 years in Philadelphia, and I had two children there, my son who's 5, and my daughter who is 3. And then we made Aliyah already over 2 years ago
Right.
to Beit Shemesh,
Right.
Marat Beit Shemesh. And I had my third child. I had a son in August.
Mom.
So yeah, so it's definitely a busy house, and thank God we love Israel and we're really happy to be here. But it was definitely an adjustment in terms of the medical system in general. But then when it came to prenatal care and birth, it was like a whole new world. I always joke, I felt like it was having a first kid again because
Yeah.
on the one hand, it was like, it's my third kid. Like I've been there, done that.
Right.
But then it was like this whole new system, and I'm
Right.
like, I feel like this is my first baby.
Right. Right. No, part of it is navigating the system and figuring out who your, doctor or midwife is going to be, and a
Right,
doula, and the
right,
hospitals. And I
right.
know, in Israel, it's more
Totally.
socialized medicine, but some people get a private doctor. Um, and
Right.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
And then here it's all private, mostly private insurance. So it's totally different. I really want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, do you want to start, I guess, by telling us a little bit about your experiences with your first two in the States, how you chose your doctor, who
Yeah,
was on your support
sure.
team, and you could
Yeah.
obviously tell us a little bit about those
So
births if you want. Yeah, go ahead.
so with my first, so I'll just backtrack a little bit. When
Yeah.
I was in college, I watched The Business of Being Born.
Wow, that is pretty advanced.
And I know. But the truth is, I was so not the type to be like into having kids and whatever. Like, I was never the type that was like a babysitter and like natural mommy.
Yeah.
But I've always, felt very strongly about like feminine issues. So when I watched The Business of Being Born, my whole mind was blown because I didn't necessarily grow up in the kind of family that sits around and talks about birth and empowerment, anything like that. So I saw that, so I knew from the beginning, like I really wanted to be involved with my birth when the time came and like
Yeah.
really have a say in how it was going to go down. So when I
Yeah.
became pregnant with my first, I kind of just asked a friend who lived in the place where we were moving to if they had a recommendation for an OBGYN. I joined a large practice It was all women doctors. And I had a doula that in the community that I lived in. And you know, I read everything, and I had a whole birth plan, and I you know, was really, really excited, and I had this whole plan in mind of what I wanted. And yeah, that's always how it goes, right? With your first. And then I went to my doctor at 38 and plus a couple of days, and she said, "Oh, nothing's going on." And I thought, okay, fine, whatever, like it's still early. And that night my water broke. So
I just want to interject that for anyone watching, it just goes to show that those cervical checks are not predictive.
Yeah, completely pointless.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I even did it, but that's a different story.
It's curiosity.
Yeah. So my water broke. Shabbos had just started, so it was like my husband wasn't even home, and then he got back, and you know, we're just like first time super excited parents. We're like calling the doctor, whatever. So we went to the hospital.
Right.
So to make a long story short, my first was a long, drawn out labor.
Yeah.
They did give me things to push it along, not Pitocin, but other drugs. And I did end up getting an epidural, and I had an epidural for a long time because the contractions with those drugs are so different than the contractions without them.
100%.
So, you know, thank God he was born healthy after 36 hours in labor.
Wow, that's really long.
And I considered it was a miracle that I didn't get a C-section. Not that there's anything wrong with getting a C-section if you need it, but I just felt like I didn't need one, and my doctors were very supportive of that.
That's great. So,
yeah. But I found the residents in the hospital very overwhelming and very invasive. And I also found the nurses, like some of them were helpful, but some of them were not. I was there for so long. I saw so many shift changes. Yeah. So, you know, it was just your typical first birth. Long, a little stressful, didn't really know what was going on. My doula, who was supposed to be there, wasn't there because I went early. So my friend stepped in who was covering for her. So it was really nice to have a friend there. But at the same time, like, I didn't go through the blow by blow with her of everything I wanted. So it was like, not, you know, really not how I planned it, but, you know, that was that. So then when I became pregnant with my second, I switched OBs. I went to a much smaller practice. I went to the most amazing OBGYN in the entire world. Like, she was just like one of these people that was born to
your provider.
born to be an OB. Like, she just was in it for all the right reasons. And my favorite thing that she ever told me was she had 3 children of her own, and her last baby she did without any epidural or anything like that because she just wanted, for professional curiosity, to go through an unmedicated labor. I'm like, only someone who really is like, you know, passionate would do that. And so I felt like, you know, they really heard me. That time I found a doula outside the community, someone who had tons and tons of experience, who I felt like I really hit it off with. And I felt like I was in a really good place.
Yeah, and that was just
and
one
with my
sorry, just that your doctor at this point was a practice, or was a solo practitioner? Did she have partners?
It was her and 2 other doctors.
It was much smaller.
I saw, much smaller, and I saw the other doctor once. Like the third doctor was newer, so the other doctor was there, had been there for a long time, a million people. Also really like him. I saw him once just because she couldn't fit me in, and I felt totally confident that he would be able to step in, and you know, and he was also really great. Just a different type of environment in the office. You know, like all the nurses knew you by name. Everybody was happy to see you when you walked in.
Such a good feeling.
Yeah,
It's commenting. I love her. And hi, by the way, Rachel.
Oh yeah, I sent her there.
That's the best.
I'm like,
in the city, like basically like in the whole group of people that were there, like everyone, you know, like we all use the same practice. Basically, that's just like what happens.
Yeah, I mean, when you find someone so good, it's like you have to share the information because it's such a personal moment and like process, and you need someone who really knows what they're doing and really cares.
Yeah, totally.
So with my daughter, I was having contractions like on and off forever. And finally, a few days before my due date, every night before bed, I would get contractions. And finally, so I would take a shower and they would always go away. So finally, that night I took the shower. They didn't go away. So I turned to my husband and I said, I guess we'll see what happens.
Right.
I put on like some hypnosis type of stuff.
Yeah. Did you do anything
I didn't do
during your pregnancy, like hypno babies or anything?
yeah, I didn't do hypnobirthing per se, but I was very into like hypnosis at night and also kind of like mantras and stuff like that just to get through and have, you know, a positive mindset.
It's so mental, you know, like it's so much about your mental.
Yeah, 100%. So, and also I will say I did, at around 31 weeks when I found my new doula, I did do some new reading and, you know, I made some decisions and I think that that was really helpful because I just really took the time, even though it was my second kid, like you feel like, oh, I don't need to do that, but
No.
I decided to. Anyway, so then I woke up, my water broke, I was in labor, like contractions were coming. And I think I got to the hospital, I want to say at around 6 a.m. And I ended up, and then she was born at 11:50 a.m. At around, I think around 8:30, 9 o'clock, I asked for an epidural and they didn't give it to me until 10:30. So I had it for about an hour before she was born.
Okay.
But I will say, once I got that epidural, I went from 5 to 10 in like half an hour.
Yeah.
So for me, I knew like it relaxed me in that sense. I got some rest. I was so tired because I hadn't been sleeping for like, right. So I just needed that rest. Like I kept looking at the bed and thinking like, I just want to lay down. And so it was like, it was an amazing labor. It was so positive.
Amazing.
I maybe pushed for like 10 minutes.
Awesome.
And it was fabulous. It was everything, you know, redeeming for that first birth that was so hard and so traumatic and so painful and all of those things.
Amazing.
It was really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were my births in America. They were very different.
Yeah.
But when I was pregnant with my third, I was coming off such a positive experience with my second. So that definitely helped.
Right. No, when you have that like really positive experience, it's interesting. I also like my second birth also was my like ideal labor. And it's amazing to have that experience. Like it's a huge blessing. But then like I'm not sure where you're gonna go with your third birth, but I felt like for me, like I was holding on to that expectation so tightly when I was pregnant with Sarah, my third. I'm not sure that it helped me because I didn't go into labor on my own, and it was so different.
Oh wow!
You know, I was like holding out for the same experience, and it just didn't.
I totally hear that.
But it's amazing to like have that experience because then you know, okay, this is possible. You know, like it is possible.
Right.
Yeah. So going into your so when she was like 2, you made Aliyah? 1.5?
When my daughter was 18 months, we made Aliyah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made Aliyah.
So we made Aliyah and then I think my daughter was a little like about 2.5 when I became pregnant with my son. And it was like a whole new world for me. So the biggest change right away is the prenatal care. It's so different.
Oh, how is that different?
Your doctor, right. So first of all, the doctor that you see has absolutely nothing to do with your labor. Like nothing. They won't even know if you gave birth. Like they have nothing to do with it. You go, basically how it works in Israel is everyone has a health fund that they belong to. Okay. They have like 4 that you choose from. And people join various ones for different reasons. It could be in one city, one's better. It could be a specialist that you need is on another. It's really a personal decision.
Okay.
So the one that we joined has fantastic pediatric and family doctors, but the OB is sorely lacking, and they know that, and everyone talks about it. And but you know, you always think like, okay, mine will be different, whatever. So you go to your doctor, you know, you just make an appointment, you show up and you say like, okay, I'm pregnant. And they send you for an ultrasound,
Right.
and then you come back in and they just like hand you some papers and say like make these tests, and you need referrals for everything, so you have to be in touch. It's very disjointed. It's my practice, the way it worked was you went to your doctor, they said, okay, you need to get this done, here's the thing, call the place, make the appointment, and whatever, and they get the results. And but here how it works is, let's say, so I went, they confirmed the pregnancy, okay, then I wanted to do the nuchal translucency. So I had to get a referral from that from my doctor, call a completely different office to make the ultrasound,
Right.
and then show up to the ultrasound, which with an ultrasound tech I've never met in my entire life.
Right.
And then she writes a report and sends it to the doctor, and then, you know,
Like
and
your
like the
original
ultrasound tech
doctor?
is like,
Like the first, like their
yeah,
primary,
and the ultrasound tech, like, you know, you can appreciate this in Israel. She's like, oh, but she's like, okay, is he okay? I'm like, so is my baby okay? Yeah. I'm like, okay, but like, how am I supposed to know that? I don't know what I'm looking at. Like,
Right. I was gonna ask you like the language
you know?
barrier. I mean, especially you had recently moved
Right.
there. I'm
So,
sure your Hebrew is better now, but like when you first was there, was it hard to communicate?
so I'll tell you, with the doctors, all the doctors speak English because they all have to because of medical school.
Okay.
And the nurses in my health fund speak English as well.
Okay.
Also, like when you go to your doctor in America, you get your blood pressure, weight, urine with your nurse. Here, there's a nurse's station in the Kupan. Like that responsibility is on you. So if you never go and do it, like no one's going to come knocking at your door and be like, oh, you need your blood pressure taken.
So you do it yourself?
So you don't do it yourself, but you have to go to the nurse's station on your own time. You could go before your appointment every time if you wanted to, but they're not always there, and blah blah blah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot of moving parts. So the hardest part with the language barrier was learning all of the language. Like, how am I supposed to know how to say nuchal translucency in Hebrew? You know, it's like, you know, and also there is an extra ultrasound that they give here that they're telling me about. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What ultrasounds at 15 weeks? You know, they're very into ultrasounds here. They love ultrasounds in Israel. And at one point, I did end up seeing a private doctor because I felt like I needed someone to walk me through the process. I saw an amazing doctor. His name is Dr. Weiss. He's in Beit Shemesh. He's from West Hempstead originally, and he guided me through my pregnancy. And he said to me, I really think they just send you for a million ultrasounds because there's so many people that need to see OBs in this country. They just don't have the time. So they think we'll send you for an ultrasound. I mean, and it's true. Like in Beit Shemesh, women are pregnant all day, all the time.
Right. I was going to ask you, like, do you feel like the culture around pregnancy and birth is different in Israel because there are so many, you know, religious Jewish families that in general have a lot of kids. So like here, I feel like in the US, it's not necessarily like the religious community, but just broadly culturally, it's very much like, is everything okay? Like, you know, pregnancy is like an emergency waiting to happen, birth's an emergency waiting to happen. Like, we're
no, it's
like
definitely
in Israel. Like, how is that?
Yeah, and I definitely feel like in general, even among the secular communities, people can have 3-4 children and not be religious at all. So in general, you know, it's definitely a culture that is comfortable with childbirth and pregnancy. Yeah, I feel like if you have a normal progressing pregnancy, then no one really is going to bother you. I think the experience for some people has been different if they're high risk. But in general, I would say I definitely got a less alarmist feeling throughout the process, which is good and bad.
Right.
But so eventually, I want to say after my first trimester, or maybe at the end of it, I decided to get a private doctor, not for the whole pregnancy, but just when I needed it to guide me through. And he was also available via WhatsApp. Now, you know, in America, that would cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars to do something like that.
Yeah.
But here it's very different. Even for private care, it's not insanely cost prohibitive.
Okay.
It's not cheap, but it's not something that's going to bankrupt you to see a private OB once every month or so.
Right.
During pregnancy. And he was very helpful in guiding me and, you know, whatever. And I figured out there was one doctor on the Kupal who I liked. And, you know, I kind of fumbled my way along. I also had to get iron transfusions because my iron was very low, even at the beginning of the pregnancy. And my biggest complaint really with the system was not that, oh, the OBs aren't so personal and whatever. Like, it is what it is. It's free healthcare. So, you know, it's that I was unable to ever get in touch with them. And that to me was really nerve-wracking because at any moment in pregnancy, something can come up and you just want someone, and most of the times it's fine, but you just want someone to assure you, like, everything's okay.
Right. And in the US, it's so accustomed to, at least they have, like, even if it's out of office hours, they have an emergency number, or you can leave a message for the doctor.
Right.
100%. Online messaging, like I used to email my OB, like there's
right.
Like,
so some health funds, not mine, do have an option to message your OB on an app. I have that option for my family doctor and for my kid's pediatrician, but for some reason it doesn't exist for OBs. But I know other people who are able to message their OBs, which is really nice. Like one OB did give me an email, but it's just like it's not the same.
No, you want
and they're over
if you need to, you know,
right.
Like you said,
and they have no
everything's fine,
and they have no clue who you are. Right.
So going into this, like, had you? So sorry, keep going with the pregnancy, and then I'll talk about birth. Like,
no, so thank God, you know, I had my private doctor, and he was sort of there when I needed someone to step in. And I had an amazing doula. If anyone lives in Israel, I highly recommend her. Her name is Rachel Reese. She's amazing.
Okay.
And you know, I was ready to go. So in Israel, how it works is you choose the hospital you give birth at, and you don't have to pre-register. You can just walk in. You could pre-register if you want to, but any hospital in the country you can go to, your birth will be free. And they have to take you.
And do different hospitals have like different reputations, like for like a couple months, like
for sure,
like whatever natural birth? There are certain hospitals more accommodating for that. Yeah. So what were you thinking, like along those lines, in terms of figuring out which hospital you wanted to go to?
Right. So for me, I basically in Beit Shemesh, the closest hospital is 35 minutes away, which is Hadassah, which is really not so close. There are a lot of people who have given birth in ambulances here. And, you know, that's just what it is. But I knew that wasn't going to be me because I don't have these crazy fast leapers. Like, I knew I was okay. So I did research, and I decided that the big Jerusalem hospitals were not for me. They are packed with people giving birth. People labor in the hallway, and it's just not, it did not sound appealing to me. I think they're wonderful hospitals, but it is a factory, and, you know, it has a reputation for a reason, and the hospitals can get very overcrowded. So I knew I wanted to avoid that. Also, the drive to Hadassah from Beit Shemesh is like on a windy road. It's awful. I couldn't imagine doing that in labor. And it's just like a massive hospital with both of them don't have good parking. Like in reality, you're thinking like, how do you pick a hospital over parking? But like, I'm telling you, like there's a scene, I don't know if you ever watched Shtisel, but there's a scene in Shtisel in the last season where the character is giving birth to Shari Tzedek, and the father cannot find a parking spot. And everyone who lives in Israel is cracking up because it's like really the truth. Like no one could find parking there. So I decided to give birth at Asuta Ashdod. Ashdod is about 45 minutes from Beit Shemesh. It's in the south, on the beach. And it's a newer hospital. It's 4 years old, so it's going to be really nice and new and modern. It's much smaller than the Jerusalem hospitals because they're catering to a much smaller population. And it had a really good reputation. My doula had been to a few births there. She really, really liked it. I had spoken to people who gave birth there, and they were very happy with the experience. So we took a tour. I really liked it. and the parking was excellent. So we said, okay, we're gonna do it. And it was a pretty easy drive from Beit Shemesh. Like, it wasn't anything crazy.
Okay.
Hang on one second. For some reason, I can't hear you now.
Oh, I don't know.
Here we go. Hang on a second. Okay. So yeah, so I decided to give birth there.
Yeah.
And probably due to the lack of following up and communication and whatever, at 36 weeks, which I thought this was the case, they told me the baby was breech.
Oh my gosh. You thought
yeah.
it was breech?
I thought it was breech because it just, the way it felt in my stomach did not feel how my other kids felt at that point. Like,
you can tell.
Yeah, you can tell, like, all the Braxton Hicks were like very tense at the top, and it just felt really weird to me.
Wow.
For some reason, I can't hear you. Do you think maybe your volume turned down?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, just like very lightly.
Quiet. I don't even have my headphones here. Okay, I'll just try to talk loud.
Yeah. So it turned out he was
an ultrasound or with like a manual exam.
What? Sorry.
Is it an ultrasound to figure it out?
Yeah, they did an ultrasound at 36 weeks because, like I said, Israel loves their ultrasounds.
It's interesting because usually 36 week ultrasound is like not so common. Look, I found headphones.
Hang on one sec. I really can't hear you, so
I'm gonna try my
I don't know
headphones
what's going on.
Let me try my. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, do you want to hear something funny? My dad kept calling me because he saw some notification about something. It was probably that I went live on this, and he has no idea what it is. Hysterical.
Let me see if this helps. Does this help? Does that help?
No, I don't know what it is.
Sad.
It's weird. It's probably my phone.
Okay, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So this is a little better.
Better? Okay, fine.
Yeah. Hang on one second.
No problem.
Yeah. So they can see on an ultrasound that the baby is breech.
Yeah.
And so right away I went into complete panic mode because I never expected that this would be the case. Like,
right.
I mean, I thought it was, but I was like, once they said it was real, I was freaking out. Right. So to make a long story short, I decided to go ahead with the procedure, which in English is called an ECV. Yeah. In Hebrew, it's called a flip. A flip, yeah. And basically, they flip they flip the baby.
Wow.
And it has to be done in a hospital setting because they have to monitor you and all of these things. And in Israel, you have to get a referral to get the procedure, to even go to the hospital to get checked, to then get the procedure. It's a whole thing. Right. So eventually, I got it together, and I went to a suite to the hospital that I planned to give birth at because I could go anywhere to do it, to have the procedure done. And we were there for the whole day. I did it at exactly 37 weeks. And the procedure actually was all of 5 minutes, but because of the monitoring,
it took a long time.
They keep you there all day, and you need a muscle relaxant. Anyway, so thank God the procedure was successful. The doctor did an awesome job. A lot of people have said that their experience was that it was very painful. Yeah. That was not my experience. I don't know if the doctor was gentle or if whatever they gave me was very successful, but it was really great.
Yeah. Did they give you anything for pain relief? Like,
just a muscle relaxant, but no pain relief.
No, like epidural or anything.
The idea is that if the mother is really in so much pain, the baby probably will be in distress too. So they don't like to give a lot of pain relief. And the doctor actually, I thought this was really great. He taught me how to feel if there was like head or feet at the top, so that if the baby flipped, I would have an idea.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
right.
So
So then once I had the procedure, I started having contractions on and off, which is very normal because they basically just, augmentated your
right.
uterus.
Also, with the
Like,
baby, like when they're head down, their head is putting more pressure on your cervix, so it's better
right,
positioned
right,
to like
yes,
trigger things,
yeah. So it's really funny. Basically, I was 38 plus a few days at that point, and we made plans to go out for Shabbos lunch. And I was talking to a friend, and it was a mutual friend. Actually, I was talking to Becca Kazakoff, and the friend that I was going to for Shabbos lunch is someone that she knows.
Uh-huh.
And I said, yeah, I'm so excited. We're going to them for Shabbos lunch. And she said, you're totally going to go until you're going to have the baby, because anytime you make plans that you actually want to go to is when you have your baby. So sure enough, Thursday night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I was in
Oh my
labor. I
God.
had earlier in the week, I had done acupressure just to like take some stress off. I was so on edge. I
Yeah.
like wasn't sleeping.
Yep.
So whatever. So I took some pressure off, and then Thursday, right. So about 3 o'clock, I woke up and I knew for sure I was in labor.
Wow.
Like they weren't going away. They were painful. Like, I needed to like catch my breath when they were going. It was still manageable, but because I was a 45-minute drive from a hospital, I was like, I'm not waiting around for this to.
Okay.
And funny enough, joke's on me with this one, this was the only child that I said, oh, I'm just going in and getting the epidural. I'm tired. It's my third kid. Like, I'm done. I'm not
Just too
trying
tired for this.
anything. Like,
I
yeah,
ain't
I'm
got
just
time for
like,
that.
let's go. Like, I'm walking in with, ready to go.
Yeah.
So we left, I think, at around 4 a.m. And, thank God we had a neighbor that came and stayed with
Watch
the
your kids.
kids
Yeah.
until the babysitter got here. And, we get to the hospital. It's 4 o'clock in the morning or 4:30, whatever it was. We got there very quickly, and, they say, oh, you're only 2 centimeters. I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, just give me the epidural. Like, I'm telling you, I'm like, this is going to go real fast once you give me the epidural. I'm like, because this is playing out just like my daughter's birth. So, like, I promise you, like, it's slow right now, but, like, I'm going to go. And they're like, oh, blah, 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 and you need this. And I'm like, okay. So they wanted me to labor a little bit more, which is totally fine. And they gave me a nice room to labor in, and they let my doula turn off the lights and put on a salt lamp and all of these things. And in Israel, all of birth is handled by midwives. Unless you are high risk, you do not see an OBGYN, except for they check you in. Like
Wow.
the OBGYN is basically there to just like sign off on it
Uh-huh.
and say that everything's okay.
Wow, that's so interesting. Wait, so for
So
prenatal care, you see an OB the whole time, but then when it comes to the birth itself, you're with a midwife that you've never met before?
yes,
Uh-huh. Interesting.
exactly.
That is so interesting. So different than
Yeah, it's
here.
really so in that respect, I was super excited because I was super into the whole idea of midwives,
Yep.
and I thought that it was much better,
Yep.
especially in Israel. All they do are births.
Right. No, it's true. For
So
low
I was
risk people,
super. I
midwives
was
have generally have, better outcomes with lower interventions. So
yeah.
it's
So
definitely a good
I was
thing.
totally into that, but
Yeah.
um, whatever. I just it is what it is. So funny enough, my doula said she thinks that in Israel they are very like they say that you're not as far along as you actually
Uh-huh.
are because they don't want to put you in a room yet and get you the epidural, because if the longer you wait, like whatever. Also, there's not as many
Right.
there's a lot of people giving
Yeah,
birth in this
they don't want you
country,
to take up
so
a room.
you know
Right.
um so eventually I was like pulling my hair out. I'm like, you have, and my doula was doing an amazing job. They were very flexible with that. They let her do her thing, they let me do my thing. But I was like, this is the real deal. Like, I need to get into I need to get into the labor room. Like, I'm like, I need to at least be in a room that's like with a shower or something.
Right, right.
So finally we agreed, okay, we're going to bring you up to labor and delivery, because there you kind of like hang out in this like, labor emergency room kind of
Like a triage?
situation until it's triage, but it's
It's more
nice. I mean, in
comfortable.
that location, it's nice.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But it's like you have, I don't know. My experience in America was like I was in triage for 5 minutes and then I went to my room.
Right.
This is like you could be there for hours.
Right. And they let you
So
leave.
I got to my room and I met the midwife. She was amazing, super positive, super, you know, spiritual.
Nice.
It was great. She was fabulous. And her English was good enough that we could, you know, work together. So I really, really enjoyed her. Oznat. She was fabulous.
Yeah.
She just had such a good energy. And it's so important.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, of course, like I said, joke's on me. That I labored without an epidural for 4 hours, something like that.
But what happened?
Very
You were
long.
like, I really want it, and then you got to the labor and delivery room.
I know. I was like, I want it, but they were taking so long. First they wanted to see that I progressed. So I definitely did. Within a couple of hours, I went to 5.5 centimeters. And I said, I'm telling you, if I get this epidural now, I am going to give birth in like 2 minutes. Just let me get it. So fine, whatever. It was like they only had one anesthesiologist, and she was in the OR. And then every pregnant woman wanted the epidural. So I was really losing it, and they let me go into the shower with a wireless monitor, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and that was just like standard. It wasn't anything so special. And that's what I really loved about the process, is that they were just like, yeah, sure. And, you know, if I didn't want them to keep the blood pressure cuff on or what, yeah, no problem.
Right,
like it wasn't this like, oh no, like we need to check every 5 seconds. Otherwise something really bad could happen. It was very normal.
It's amazing.
And I really, really liked that.
Yeah.
It helped keep me calm.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I was like, I just, you know, did not expect to be laboring for so long without an epidural.
Right.
And then it got to a point where it was really getting intense. And so I screamed, and finally they ran in and they said, you know, what's going on? I said, you know, I'm like yelling at them, just give me my epidural. And, you know, people always joke like, the only way you get anything in Israel is yelling at people. So my doula said, like, you did a great job. That was excellent. So finally I got my epidural. And I don't know why they have a policy that no one can be in the room with you besides the midwife.
Yeah, they have that.
And my husband was so worried, like, are you going to be okay? Blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, the midwife was so supportive. She let me like hold on to her and squeeze her, and you know,
so nice.
You're going through those contractions while they're sticking a needle in your back.
Not fun.
And you know, it's not easy, and she was really supportive, and that was really an amazing moment for me.
So nice.
The epidural in Israel is a lot lighter. I would say it was more of like a walking epidural. I never was totally numb.
Wow. Which
is good and bad.
Do you think that was unique to you, or that's like is that like a known thing? Like that the drug.
What?
Do you think that was unique to your experience, or is that like a known?
I think that it was unique to me because I had experience before in America. I think that if you don't know anything else, that's just what you think an epidural is. But it was a very light epidural. I mean, it took the edge off, but I still the whole time could feel the contractions. Finally, I got to about 9 centimeters. My water hadn't broken. They said, what do you want to do? I said, let me just like rest for a little bit, whatever. The contractions were coming on stronger and stronger. I could still feel the pressure, a lot of pressure. So I said, okay, I want you to break my water. Again, I felt like that was really awesome that they were just kind of like, let us know what you want to do. You want to rest? 100%. You want us to break your water? 100%. You want to, you know,
it's so important
I feel like
to your
that
experience.
And I felt like that was unique to being with a midwife, being in Israel, where birth is so normal and they see so much of it.
Yes. And they respected you as the decision maker in your care.
100%.
Which is how it should be, in my humble opinion.
I felt very, very respected. I also worked with another midwife as well, and she was also very, very respectful. And if something did come up that she needed to tell me, she said it in a very calm, like supportive way. It wasn't like, you need to do this now. It was like, okay, this is what we're going to do right now. And like, this is what we need to do for you and the baby and whatever. So in the end, they broke my water and he still wasn't coming out because third baby wild card.
Wow.
His head was in like a weird angled position.
Yeah.
I was pushing forever. I was
Oh my
exhausted.
gosh.
They brought in there was like a little bit of meconium, but nothing crazy when they broke my water. Like,
Okay.
my doula said to me, I would tell you if it was, scary and like you needed to be concerned. And the OB came in and he manipulated the head. I don't know what
Like
he
internally?
did. It's like, what?
Like it with an internal exam? Like internally?
Yes, it was
Wow.
internal.
Oh my
He
gosh.
manipulated the head. Like he had his hands on my stomach and then was like inside of me turning my baby's head.
Good
And
thing
at
you had
this
an
point, like
epidural.
it wasn't like it was such a, yeah, it was crazy. But again, everyone was so
Yeah.
professional and so nice, and no one was like, "Oh, we need to do this and the
Right.
baby."
Just
They're just like,
explaining it
"This
to
is what
you.
we're doing.
Right.
We're
Just
gonna get
matter
the
of
baby
fact.
out,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be fine,
Yeah.
and everyone's gonna be okay."
Yeah.
Um,
Did they say
and
if sometimes
once,
it's like they say it's asynclitic? Does that ring a bell at all? Where like the head is like kind of at a weird angle? Yeah. That's
yeah, and
yeah.
once
It
once
makes
he
it
did
harder to
that,
push because
he came out.
right, came out right
He
away.
came out in like a minute.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, so thank God, he was born. Total, I think the labor was about 8 hours, which
Very
really
good.
isn't so long, but it was just a lot was going
Yeah.
on, and the end was rough and exhausting.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is going just like my daughter's, so I'm just gonna push for like 2 minutes, and this baby's
Right.
gonna fly out.
Right.
And then that was not the
Right.
case. Um, but it
Wow.
was okay. It was very tiring and exhausting. I will say that. And my body definitely took longer to recover, I think, because I was pushing for so
What
long.
is so long? When you say so
Um,
long, like do you know how much time that was?
yeah, it was like 2 hours.
Wow, that is pretty long, especially for a third
Yeah,
baby.
it was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank God he was born healthy.
Thank God.
He looked great.
Yeah.
He came out ginger, which was very exciting.
So cute.
Because my husband has red hair, so we've always like wanted to have a ginger, so we were very excited. And it was a very exciting moment. It was our first child born in Israel.
Yeah.
And we were just so relieved. It was really, really special. And as there's something special in Israel when your baby comes out and everyone's saying Mazal Tov,
Right.
and it's also something. There's a minhag that we actually did, a tradition that we did with my daughter. Is there's a book called the Noam Elimelech, and it's supposed to be, if you put it under the pillow, it's supposed to be a segula, like a
good omen.
good thing to bring an easy labor. And so in this hospital and in most hospitals in Israel, every room has a copy.
I love Israel. That's amazing. I love
and it's
that.
not even like it's not even such a religious hospital like the hospital itself, but it did have a lot of religious people giving birth there.
Right.
And it was just a really, really special moment. And I also felt like even though with him being breech and all the stress of getting the procedure done and everything, like having such a positive birth experience was really nice. And they were also very supportive afterwards to let me do skin to skin and nursing and all of that, good stuff.
Right.
The after part the postpartum care leaves a little to be desired, but it's my third child, so I didn't really need anyone to hold my hand through the process. But overall, when I look and I compare my births and I look at the full picture, I really do feel like I had a really great experience here. And I really just liked that it didn't feel so medical. It didn't feel so alarmist. And even though I had, that situation at the end where, his head was a weird position and his heart rate dropped a little bit, they were getting like a little, what she just calmly said to me, the doctor's going to come in, he's going to do this thing, we're going to try and get the baby out, and like everything's going to be fine.
Right.
And I really liked the way that they approached it. I don't know if it would be the same at every hospital or even the same with a different midwife at that hospital, but it was just I really, really liked how they handled it. And I really enjoyed just the positive attitude of the midwives that I had. Like, they were just really nice to be around. And also, I think something that's special is like they all had a lot of kids themselves, and even they weren't even necessarily so religious, but like
their moms.
The one, the one midwife I had was not. I didn't even know if she was religious or not. And then she starts saying this, you know, it's just like so Israel. Like she starts saying all these spiritual things. And she said that when she had her fourth baby, she swore, I'm never having another child ever. And then she decided I wanted to have a fifth baby. So I needed to go and do reversal of vows.
That's hard
because I swore I wasn't going to have another baby. So it was like, you know, stuff like that kept the mood light. They also encouraged me to put music on, to turn off the lights. The labor room actually had like a swing. Like, I don't know if it's called a swing, but it was like hanging from the ceiling, and you could like use it to sit on and move around with, and
or probably like pull on if you find that helpful.
Yeah. Every room had a birthing ball and a mat.
So awesome.
So yeah, so
it's just more
definitely,
supportive
and
and like conducive to moving things along.
And it definitely was more supportive. And even though it took forever to get that epidural, I felt like I had enough support and you know, understanding that like I was going to make it through. And my doula was amazing, and it was overall a really positive experience. And you know, I think that being an immigrant lends itself to, you know, a very different experience than what you're used to. But at the same time, even though Israel is a different system and sometimes it can be overwhelming and confusing and you're just like, I don't understand this at all, there can also be a lot of beauty in different things that we never realized before.
100%. I love that.
And I think that that's how it is in Israel. There's a lot of positive to the way the system works here.
Right.
So, you know, thank God now my baby, he's almost 6 months old. He's doing great. And it's also a different system here after you have a baby, like with seeing the pediatrician, not seeing the pediatrician, whatever.
So what's like the postpartum
it's different,
period,
and we're learning along the way.
Yeah. Is there more, do you feel like there is more support for moms? I won't even say less support because the U.S. is so bad, but do you feel like there's more support for new moms in the postpartum?
I think it depends. I mean, I found
like on any level, by the way, I'm saying like from like government or like community wise, like how, like
so
what is that
first
like?
of all, you get paid to have a baby, which is really nice.
That's a good starting point.
I forget how much they gave, but it was very nice.
Like a stipend.
I wasn't working at the time, but if you are working, you get, I believe now it's 15 weeks paid maternity leave through the government, which is really, really amazing.
Really
and it's so interesting because like here, none of the daycares or babysitters take any babies before 4 months old, because that's or 3 months old rather, because that's standard, like the minimum.
Right. That's so nice.
And I found that I feel like in general, because it is a country where so many women are giving birth and having babies, that I don't know, it feels like a little more like, oh wow, like you just had a baby, like, you know, you need to rest, you need to do this. But at the same time, it's still, you know, you're still not having like a nurse come to your house or anything like that. You still have to go out and check your baby to get weighed.
Yeah.
In terms of nursing, I felt like it was more or less the same. Maybe even less, because I felt like in my area when I had my baby, there was really only like one lactation consultant. And I just didn't really click with her. And then I was having some issues, and I ended up exclusively pumping for like a month.
Wow.
And I kind of did, I mean, listen, it was my third child, and my second child I nursed for 15 months. So I had a lot of experience with it. And then eventually, like at the time that I wanted to get him back to nursing and not on the bottle, a lactation consultant moved to my area, and she was amazing, and she helped me. But I definitely think, I mean, my experience in the hospital was that, you know, you say like, oh, I'm not really getting the nursing. They're like, oh, okay. So like, you can just use formula. Like, there was only one lactation consultant for the whole floor.
Wow.
That being said, I don't think there's anything wrong with formula, and my first son was mostly formula fed,
Right.
but because it's such a society where so many women are having babies, I did expect it to be more.
Right.
Now, one thing I thought was nice that they had was they had like a mother's lounge in the hospital, like a room where they gave like classes and stuff. So they had like a whole class that they gave, caring for your baby, feeding your baby, whatever, that you had to go to. And then they had another one that was nursing. I didn't go to the one that was nursing, mostly because I just wanted to rest.
Yeah.
And also it was all in Hebrew. So for me to listen to it all in Hebrew, I would have had to use my brain the entire time, and I just wasn't up for that. But I thought that was really nice that they did that. Really nice. And even though there was only one lactation consultant, she was very much available. But I had a roommate. That's another thing. After you have your baby,
you share a room.
Unless you had some kind of serious complication or whatever, you have a roommate. So my roommate, she was a first-time mom, and she was struggling so much with nursing, and I felt so bad because, you know, like Saturday night, there's no lactation consultant there to help her. Like, it was like me.
Did you help her?
You know?
Did you like pull back the curtain and be
like,
I
mean, no, I mean, I was talking to her for a little bit. I was saying that nursing was so, you know, it's very hard, especially with the first whatever. And then at some point, like, her husband came over and was like, "Can you come help my wife?" I'm like, "Sure, I'm happy to." So like,
cute.
Yeah. So, you know, and it's nice, like, you have your meals in like a small cafeteria with like the other mothers. And it was also really nice. Like, after Shabbat, my husband made Havdalah for like all the moms. I don't really know how that worked out that way, but we just
ended up that
went to ask for Havdalah supplies at the front desk, and then they were like, "Oh, we're making Havdalah right now for the whole floor. Everyone come."
Only in Israel. Only in Israel.
Yeah. So it was, you know, I stayed in the hospital for 2 nights, and then I went home. I feel like in general, my community was very, very supportive. Like, we had meals for 3 weeks, and
so helpful.
What?
So helpful. I find like the meals after
so helpful,
birth is like the most
and
helpful.
just like, and just, you know, everyone was so nice and helpful, and people picked up my kids and took my kids here and there. My neighbors watched my kids over that Shabbos right after I had the baby, so my husband could stay with me in the hospital.
Really nice.
Oh, that's another thing to keep in mind, is that this hospital that I gave birth at, your husband can stay the whole time with you. In the Jerusalem hospitals, they cannot. They're only allowed there for visiting hours. So for a lot of people, that is very overwhelming, because
you're alone.
First of all, you just had a baby. It's whether you had a C-section or a vaginal delivery, whatever, you're in pain. You know, especially if you had a C-section, you're recovering from
surgery,
major abdominal surgery. In Israel, they're like, no, get up, walk around, like, let's go. Like, you know, I had a baby like a few hours earlier, and I'm like shuffling over to the nurse's station to ask for pain relief. You know, that's just how it is here. But at the same time, it's like kind of nice that I didn't sit in my room the whole time. Like, I actually got up and saw the world a little bit. And yeah, so so for a lot of people, it's very overwhelming, and also you're hormonal, and you just like want that support person with you, and it can be very overwhelming to be in this Jerusalem hospital where, you know, if your husband can't be there the whole time, and then like your next door neighbor has like her 12th kid, and this is like vacation for her, and for you, you're like,
was my
my gosh, I just want my husband. It's no joke. The women who are having like they're like double digits. Literally. They're on vacation at the hospital.
I had Aliyah, I had my first, and I have shared a room also. Even though in the US you could pay $1 billion for a private room, we that wasn't in the budget at the time. So I had a roommate who was a religious Jewish woman who had her 10th child, and she was on the phone, like ordering snacks for her kids and like schmoozing and like talking. I'm like, I am so overwhelmed right now. Can you just please stop being on the phone?
Right, 100%.
So I totally get what you're saying.
100%. I mean, I definitely felt like in general, with this child, I could relax a little bit more in the hospital.
For sure.
You know, I just was like chilling, whatever.
You knew what you were doing. There's like that confidence of like, okay, this is not, you know, it's not my first rodeo.
They're coming in, they're like, oh, like he needs to, I'm like,
he's fine. Relax.
Like, no, they love to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Perfect. You have that thick skin.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, I don't know why in Israeli culture it is very normal to sit and talk on the phone even when you're amongst other people. Like
Uh-huh.
in the US it's seen as something that's like a little bit rude and annoying, but in Israel it is completely normal. So I had a roommate, I was there 2 nights.
Right.
So after the first night, my first roommate went home and then I got another
Yeah.
roommate. And that roommate was like on the phone at 3 o'clock in the
Ay,
morning.
ay.
I don't know who she was talking to, but it was like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you just had a baby. Aren't you tired?
Yeah.
Like,
For real. You're like, I want to go to sleep.
um, so, so in that respect, the after part, it was definitely different, but overall it was a positive
Right.
experience, healthy
Amazing.
baby, healthy mom. And, I'm learning the medical system more and more. And, you know, at least now, if I ever need to in the future, I know what to do. And also, I'm able to help others that come here and are also, it's their first pregnancy here and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Being able to kind of help and guide them is also nice to be
Right.
like, okay, you've been there, done that. Like, let
100%.
me tell you what I've learned.
It's so helpful. It's really like amazing that you're able to like experience both, and see the differences, and also like you're saying, you can pass it on. Like you have this knowledge now.
Right.
With
Right. And also a lot of people, when they're considering making Aliyah, they're like, oh, it's so scary, the medical system, and
right,
I don't know what I'm going to do, whatever. And like, where I live, there's so many native English speakers, and everyone, slowly but surely figures it
figure it
out.
out.
And if in the case that you do have a high risk pregnancy, there are amazing high risk doctors here.
Yeah,
And the hospitals are in my experience, are very supportive of what you want.
that's
And,
great.
as long as you have in mind that it's not going to be what it was in America, it's going to be different, but that doesn't mean that it's worse.
Right,
I think you'll have a good experience.
100%.
And, knowing what I know now, I would just say to people who are in Israel that, make sure you know how to get in touch with your doctor, and you know which tests need to be done on which weeks, because no one's going to remind you. No one's
Uh-huh.
going to call you and be like, hi, reminder to go get your glucose. Like,
Right,
no one's going to do that.
right.
Like, if you don't do it, no
It's
one's,
not gonna happen.
no one, yeah. So you
Uh,
have to be really on top of it.
Amazing.
And that's kind of just a general thing as
It's
the
good
culture in
advice.
general here
Yeah,
is self-advocacy.
I love that.
But I think,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, but I think in general, it's a good attitude to have for birth, because, it's your birth and you need to take ownership of it.
Beautiful.
So
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
my
So
pleasure. This was so
fascinating. This was
fun.
so fun. Is there anything else as like, I don't know, a mom of three, now like an Aliyah maker? I made that word up. I think it's a word. Any
I
advice you want
think
to
the
share with
biggest,
anyone listening?
yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, I thought that because I had two kids 22 months apart, I had it all figured out. And then now this third baby came along and he is totally different,
I feel that.
and it's okay. Like,
Right.
I'm one of those moms that's like, I get my baby on a schedule right away and they're sleeping and this and that. And this baby is just not like that.
Yeah.
But I've come to, I think I can appreciate the differences now, and I can accept it because I know that it's all a phase.
I
It's
mean,
not going to be forever.
it's so
And
true.
I feel like with this baby, and I feel like a lot of moms say this, but I think it's important when you have your first, you're so stressed about this thing and that thing and the next thing. It's like, just enjoy the moment. Like,
Yeah.
the
It's all
other week
beautiful.
I like took a nap with my baby,
Yeah.
and I said to my husband, oh, I felt so guilty because, like, I know you're not supposed to, like, sleep with the baby because it's bad sleep habit. And he's like, who
Right.
cares? And I'm like, it was the best
Best
nap in
thing
the world.
ever.
Like, I
Right.
loved every second of it.
Right.
And, I just think it's important to enjoy those moments, because it like flashes before your eyes.
100%. That's beautiful. I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so, so much. It was a
My pleasure. It
pleasure.
was so good to see
Good to
you.
see you too. Okay. Feel good. Bye.
Bye.
Say hi to everyone.